We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Chesam and Beis in Meseches Bava Basra. This is Bava Basra Daf 38b. On the previous summit, the Gemara was discussing the Tanakama of the Mishnah. The Tanakama in the Mishnah says that if the original owner, let's say, is in Yehuda, and there's a person taking possession of his field in the Galil, so then that's not going to be a good chazaka. And the Gemara asked, why is it not a good chazaka? If you're going to say the reason is because macha shelo b'fanav lo have macha, meaning when the original owner protests, if he's not in front of the person who's taking possession, that's not a good protest, and therefore the chazaka is not a good protest. If you're going to say that's the reason, so why do you have to say Yehuda v'Galil? Even let's say it would be two different cities in Yehuda, but if he's not in front of him, it's not a good protest, and therefore it's not going to be a good chazaka. And so Rabbi Bava Bar Memel answered that what we're talking about in our Mishnah is a shas chayrim. Essentially, it's a time of trouble, a time of peril. There's no travel between Yehuda and Galil, and since there's no travel, that's why the macha, the protest, won't reach the person who's making the chazaka, and that's why it's not a chazaka. But the Gemara says if that's the case, so why not just say b'shas chayrim in a situation where you can't travel between two places? What do you need to mention Yehuda and the Galil for? And so the Gemara says what it's teaching us is the stam Yehuda v'Galil. The Mishnah is teaching us that in general, when it comes to Yehuda and Galil, keshas chayrim damu, that's the same thing as a shas chayrim, as a time in general where you don't have caravans traveling, meaning in general from Yehuda to Galil, that's a situation where there is no travel. And the Rashbam explains how Kamashmal and Rabbi Abba is teaching us the stam Yehuda v'Galil afilu b'shas shalom, means to say that Yehuda and Galil, even in a time of peace, even when it's not a time of troubles, keshas chayrim dami, but still it's considered like other places where there is a peril between them, where there's troubles traveling between them. She'ein shayaros mitzuyos mizulazu, meaning in a situation where you don't have caravans, that's true all the time. By Yehuda and Galil, it's considered a place where there's no travel between them. Aval b'shar malchios ika chayrim lo have a chazaka. But let's say other situations where it's not Yehuda and Galil, but let's say all within Yehuda, but two cities or something along those lines, so then it depends if it's a shas chayrim or not. If it's a shas chayrim, then you can't make a chazaka because there's no travel. Aval b'shas shalom have a chazaka, but if it would be a peaceful time, so then you would be able to make a chazaka to shayaros mitzuyas, because there are caravans that are traveling. When Rabbi Abba says that our Mishnah is talking about a time of chayrim, now we're saying it doesn't really mean that. It really just means that Yehuda and Galil is always like a time of chayrim. What it means is hachi kamar. This is what he means to say. Yehuda v'Galil harehein k'shas chayrim shashar malchios. Yehuda and Galil are considered like shas chayrim by other places. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Amar Rav Yehuda Marav. Rav Yehuda says that Rav says ein machzikin b'nichsei boreach. He can't make a chazaka on property of somebody who is fleeing. And the Rashbam explains ein machzikin b'nichsei boreach. Kilomar means to say im hechzik ein a chazaka. It means if you do make a chazaka, it's not going to be a chazaka. Kin mefarish v'azal, as the Gemara will explain, because savar macha shelo b'fanav lo have macha, because Rav holds if you protest not in front of him, it's not considered a protest. V'kevan de lo yachal limchos, and since he can't protest, meaning to say he can't protest because the guy is fleeing, so gamzel lo yochel hachzik, so this person won't be able to make a chazaka because the protest is not a protest. And the Rashbam explains, Rabbi Yehuda svirale, Rav over here is following Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah. The Yamar b'masnisin yelchu v'yodiyuhu shana v'yavo l'shana acheres. Rabbi Yehuda says that even if the owner is far away, you can still make a chazaka because they're going to go and they're going to let him know about it, and then he'll come the next year. Now, what does it mean he's going to come the next year? He's going to come the next year to protest. The mashma de tzarach limchos b'fanav. It sounds like he's saying that the original owner who's protesting has to actually come to the person who's making the chazak and protest in front of him. So you see from Rav Yehuda that it has to be a macha b'fanav, that a macha shelo b'fanav is not a macha, and that's what Rav essentially holds. So again, the Gemara says that Rav Yehuda says that Rav says you can't make a chazaka b'nichsei boreach, and so the Gemara continues, Ki amrisa kami de Shmuel, when this statement of Rav was said over in front of Shmuel, when Rav Yehuda said this to Shmuel, Amar li, he said to me, this is Rav Yehuda talking, when I said this over to Shmuel said to me, V'chi limchos b'fanav hu tzarech, does he need to protest in front of him? Meaning to say, Shmuel said that's not true. You could make a chazaka b'nichsei boreach, because the person who's running away, he'll be able to lodge the protest. He doesn't have to lodge the protest in front of the person making the chazaka, meaning that Shmuel says, macha shelo b'fanav is considered to be a macha. And so the Gemara says, V'rav my kamashmal. And so if that's the case, what is Rav teaching us? Macha shelo b'fanav lo have a macha. He's teaching us that a macha shelo b'fanav is not a macha. That's the whole point. You can't protest if it's not in front of the person making the chazaka, and that's why you can't make a chazaka b'nechsei boreach. You can't make a chazaka in the property of somebody who's on the run, who can't lodge the protest in front of you. But the Gemara says it contradicts what we just said in the previous Amud. V'yomar Rav, didn't Rav say in the previous Amud, macha shelo b'fanav havimacha, that a protest that's not lodged in front of him is considered to be a protest? That was how Rav explained the Tanakam of the Mishnah, because Rav said that a protest that is not in front of him is considered a protest, and it's only when you're talking about between Yehuda and Galil, so only in those situations where there's no travel at all, then we say it's problematic because the protest is not even going to reach him. But in general, you don't have to protest in front of him. You can protest from far away, and we assume in most cases the protest will reach the person making the chazaka. That seems to contradict what Rav is saying here. Rav said on the previous summon, macha shelo b'fanav is a protest. Here he's saying macha shelo b'fanav is not a macha. And the Gemara answers, Rav taima detana di don kamefarish. Rav was just explaining the opinion of the Tanakam of the Mishnah. However, v'lei lo svirla, he doesn't hold like the Tanakam of the Mishnah. He actually does hold like Rav Yehuda, and so therefore, since Rav actually holds like Rav Yehuda, the idea is that macha shelo b'fanav is not a macha according to Rav Yehuda. Again, you have to actually protest right in front of the individual. And the Gemara continues, v'ika di'amri, there are those that say they have a slightly different version of the above Gemara. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, Rav Yehuda says in the name of Rav, machzikim b'nechsei boreach. It's the opposite halacha. You are allowed to make a chazaka by the property of somebody who's running away. That would imply that macha shelo b'fanav is a macha. Ki amrisa kami de Shmuel. And then Rav Yehuda continues, when I said this in front of Shmuel, Amar li, he said to me, pshita, isn't that obvious? Of course you can make such a chazaka. V'chi limchos b'fanav utzarach. Do you need a protest in front of the person? Of course you don't need a protest in front of him. Macha shelo b'fanav is a macha. And the Gemara says, v'Rav my kamashmal, and according to this version, what is Rav teaching us? Macha shelo b'fanav have a macha, that a protest not in front of him is a macha. V'yomer Rav chadazimna, but Rav already said that one time. Again, Rav said that on the previous Amud in explaining the Tanakama, Rav said that macha shelo b'fanav is considered a macha. And so the Gemara says, Eloha kamashmal, and rather what Rav is teaching us over here is, da'afilu micha b'fnei beis, let's say even he protests in front of two people, she'ein yecholin lomar, that we know those two people can't deliver the message, have a macha. Even in that situation, Rav goes so far as to say, even in that situation, it's considered to be a good protest. The Yomer Rav Anan, because Rav Anan said, l'didi mefarshali minei de Mar Shmuel, it was explained to me in the name of Mar Shmuel, in the name of the master Shmuel, as follows, micha b'fnei shnei b'nei adam, sheyecholim lomar lo. If he protests in front of two people who are able to go and deliver the message, have a macha, that is a protest. However, according to Shmuel, micha b'fnei shnei b'nei adam she'ein yecholim lomar lo. If he protests in front of two people who cannot deliver the message, lo have a macha, it's not a macha. That's Shmuel's opinion. But Rav goes a step further. Rav says, chavra islay, your friend has a friend, v'chavra de chavra islay, and the friend of your friend has a friend, meaning we assume the message will get to the individual who's making the chazaka anyway, and therefore even in that scenario, when it's shelo b'fanav, it is considered to be a macha. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rava says, Hilchasa, the halacha is, Ein machzikin b'nechsei boreach, you're not allowed to make a chazaka in the property of somebody who is running away. Now that would imply if you're not allowed to make the chazaka, that implies macha shelo b'fanav is not a macha, it's not a good protest, that's why it's not a good chazaka. Problem is the next line. He also says the halacha is, U'macha shelo b'fanav have a macha, that a protest not in front of him is a macha. And so the Gemara says, Tarti, you just said two things that contradict one another. You said you can't make the chazaka, but you said the protest is a good protest. If the protest is a good protest, you should be able to make the chazaka. And the Gemara answers, lo kash, is not difficult. We're talking about different scenarios. Kan boreach machmas mammon. In one case, we're talking about somebody who's running away because of monetary issues, and kan boreach machmas mirodin. In the other case, we're talking about somebody who is running away because of a situation where he's accused of murder, because of a murderous type of situation, and therefore those are two different scenarios in terms of whether shelo b'fanav is effective. And Rashbam explains the answer of the Gemara. Meshani, the Gemara answers, lo kash, it's not difficult. Kan beboreach machmas mammon. In one case, we're talking when the person running away is running away because of money. In that situation, pasuk Rava Hilchasa, there Rava paskins shelo b'fanav have macha, that the protest is good, even though it's not lodged in front of him. Mishum demotzi lemechuya, because he's able to protest still in such a situation. V'chol makom shezeh yachol limchos chazkaso shel chaver b'nechasav have a chazaka, as long as he can protest. The chazaka is a good chazaka. Hoel v'lo micha, since he didn't actually protest when he should have. The kevan demach machmas chov mamun hu boreach, since he's running away because of a debt, ein ze boreach el lishtamute bialma ad havali upar. That's not really a person who's fleeing. He's just fleeing in order to delay a little till he gets money to pay back the debt. Ve'eno yori limchos. He's not afraid to lodge a protest. The kevan da'anasu, since he's in a forced situation, ve'en lo malifroa, he doesn't have what to pay anyway. Ein road fanacharav, the fact that they find out where he is because he lodged a protest, they're not going to chase after him. Even if people find out where he fled to, he's not going to be concerned. So in that case, we would say that the macha shelo b'fanav is a macha and the chazaka is a chazaka. However, kan beborech machmas meradin. In the other case, we're talking about somebody running away because he's accused of killing. Machmas ritzichas nefashos, because again of murder. Yore limchos, there he's actually afraid to protest. He won't protest at all because he doesn't want people to know where he is. Pen yodea makom tachnuso v'yirdof goel hadam achrav. He's afraid that the goel hadam, the person who's the relative of the person who he's presumed to have killed, is going to chase after him if he finds out where he is. Ki yecham levavo, like the pasuk says, he's angry at what happened. V'sigo v'hargo, and he's going to kill him. Uvididei pasuk rava de'ein machzik and b'nechsei borech. So if you have somebody running away in that situation, you can't make a chazak in his property because he really cannot protest. And the Rashbam says v'hachi hilchasa, and this is the halacha. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Hechi dami macha. What exactly is a protest? Amar Rav Zvid says, Planya gazalnahu. If the original owner simply says so and so is a thief, lo hava macha, that's not considered a protest. However, Planya gazalnahu denoket lo la'aroy begazlanusa. If he says so and so is a thief and he took my land, he stole my land, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Tes Amud Aleph.